After that, normally people go ahead and choose this, but I would suggest not, because that can sometimes create problems. So I'll go ahead and select I will install the operating system later. Next, and since we would be installing Kali Linux, I would go ahead and suggest you okay, it's going ahead and selecting Linux, and then going ahead and selecting simply Ubuntu. If you have, let's say, any other version, such as, you can also go ahead and use Debian, but I won't suggest that. I would suggest using Ubuntu because that's what normally we use. If you have 64-bit, then you can go ahead and use Ubuntu 64-bit. So I would be using the normal one. Next, I would be saving it in my own folder, so let me just go ahead and check. Okay, and over here I'll type, let's say, Kali. I'll just type VMware OS. Perfect. And I'll name the virtual machine as, let's say, Kali Linux 32-bit. Perfect. And next, and I would suggest using 2 processors. That makes it a bit more fast, and 2 cores. Next, and 1 GB of RAM. That's what I would suggest using. Next, and make sure that you use the network address translation. If you don't use that, then you won't be able to communicate with any other virtual machine, not even with your own host machine. That's the reason. And just in case you don't know what host machine is, host is your actual computer, that's your physical computer, and this virtual computer is known as a guest machine. So use always network address translation, that's NAT connection, because if you use bridge networking, then the guest must have its own IP address on the external network, else it won't work. If you use host only, then it will only connect to the host network, and this, as it suggests, it's self-explanatory that not use network operating system networking connection. So we would be using NAT, since we need to go ahead and connect each and every other operating system we have. Click next. We don't have anything to do with this, just click next and create a new virtual disk. Perfect. Next. SCSI next, and 20 GB, that's what we want, it's more than enough for us. I'll click next, and I'll go ahead and select a place as to where we need to go and install. I would suggest going ahead and using it in the same place where you created Kali Linux. So I'll just go ahead and make a new folder. Is there an option over here? Okay. Where OSS, and I'll go ahead and save it over here. Perfect. Next, so as you can see, VMware OSS, and we have everything over here. Finish. Perfect. And once I have it over here, before I go ahead and install it, I need to go ahead and click edit virtual machine, because we need to insert the ISO that we had. So shared folder, I will go ahead and select always enabled, and let's check where we have CD. We need to go ahead and use ISO image rather than using a physical drive. If you have went ahead and created a boot CD out of your ISO file, then you can use physical drive and insert a specific CD inside your operating system. If not, if you only have the ISO file that we just downloaded, which would look something similar to this one that I have over here, then I would suggest going ahead and using this. Use ISO image, I browse, and go ahead and select the specific file that we need, and we have it over here. ISO, open. Okay, and I would go ahead and ask it to power on this virtual machine. Okay, let me check, and I'll just run it. Let's see. Okay, so this button goes ahead and makes it a full screen window. If you want to go out, you can just type Control Alt and you can go out, and over here you can see that we have the live. That means we don't need to, and as I was telling you previously, live means you don't need to install anything. It will just run itself on the USB or through the ISO file. These are the forensic method. That means it won't even leave any single trail, no matter what. But we would be proceeding with graphic install, since we need to go and install that. So graphic install, and it may take a bit of time, though it's very fast. And English, since I'm in India, I'll select India. American English. It can take a bit of time, but it's actually faster than installing any other operating system. If you're installing this inside a physical computer rather than on a virtual machine, then you will have to do the same thing. Just insert your boot disk or your USB, whichever you have, and once you have installed that, once you have booted the PC, it will ask you to go ahead and the same thing that you're doing over here, graphic install. And let's see, the host name I would be using would be Kali_test. That would be the name for this PC. Okay, I'll just go back and I'll type Kali test. Let's see if that works. Perfect. Domain name skip, and the root password, it's necessary that we have a root password, so I'll just type it. Okay, perfect. The only difference in installing it on a physical computer or over here would be this. If you're using a physical computer, then you need to go ahead and select manual and specify the partition that you have created, the primary partition. If you have not, then you can just go ahead and use the entire disk, and it will straight away go ahead and install the VMware. Next, all files in one partition. Perfect. It will do everything on its own, create swap of 1 GB since we have 1 GB of RAM. The remaining it will go ahead and supply to its external hard disk, that's ext4. Whereas Windows uses NTFS, it uses ext4. Select next, write changes yes. Perfect. So it will take quite a bit of time for it to go and install that. So I'll just go and pause it. So by the time it goes ahead and install, also let's go ahead and install our another machine, that would be the Windows one. So perfect, over here we'll be using Windows and Windows 7. Perfect. And now I'll just go ahead and browse it. C Srinayak and VMware. I'll go ahead and create a new folder. I'll name it as Win7. Perfect. Yep, 2. Perfect. And 1024, I don't think we would be needing that much. I'll just type 512 MB RAM. That would be more than enough. It just suffice. Just go ahead and click next, the same things that we did previously, and I'll just go ahead and select 25 gigs because or 20 gigs because we won't even need that much. Perfect. And I'll just go ahead and select it in the same way where we installed it. Windows 7. Perfect. Save. Next. Perfect. And till the time our Kali Linux installs, let's see if we could go and install the Windows. Let's go and select edit virtual machine, and I have the NRG file instead of ISO, so let's go ahead and see if I could use, I actually doubt, but let's see if we could install it through our NRG file. Let's check, and let's try to power on this virtual machine. And by the time it gets started, let's wait. Okay, perfect, it's working. So I hope that you know how to install a Windows version. If you're not, then you can still go ahead and see this. If you know how to install, you can straight away skip to the next part, where I would go ahead and teach you how to install it on a Mac OS, and finally the live CD. So that is it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'll be continuing with the installation of Windows version.